Welcome back, Captains. This is Admiral Giannis Stefark with Starfleet Special Command. I'm here today with a video entitled My Playstyle Explained. In this video, I'm going to be covering everything that's non-gear related and how all these things come together to make not max DPS, but very good DPS. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is kind of like my thoughts and the reasoning behind the way I do things. Basically, guys, what I'm trying to do is I want a spec for my character, that covers all the different types of ships that you can play, escorts, cruisers, science ships, and you to be able to get very good DPS with those ships. Most of my cruisers right now are over 20k. The highest I've gotten is 23.7, and that was with the Avenger. Most of my other cruisers are right at 21 or so. My escorts, most of them are 14, 15, 16k. The max is like 16.1, I think. That was with my Defiant. If you go to the science ships, my Vesta is about 12, 13, 14k, depending on what you're doing and how you want to do it. But what's neat about my set is that, like the guys that are looking for max DPS, doing beam fire at will builds, they are spec straight to nothing but getting that. But with my build, you still get very good DPS, almost up to 20k, but you get to still use all the fun stuff. You still get to use your beams, your cannons, your torpedoes, mines if you want. That was my main thing, is I'm kind of a cannon type player. I like playing, like if I play a Defiant, I want to see quantum torpedoes, or I want to see photons being able to come out of it. And later on, when I get to it and I show you my Defiant build, you'll see what I'm saying about that. You'll see bits and pieces of it right there as we're talking about it, since it's sitting right in front of me. But that's what I like about my playstyle. I want to be able to use all of these things, and when we go through my captain skills, you'll actually see that. You'll see where, and I'll show you where you can move things around if you want to get a little bit more DPS out of, say, like a beam fire at will. But like I said, I want to be able to play all the ships and use all the things that you can use, all the weapons, and still make good DPS. Alright guys, now that's over with, let's go ahead and get started here. We'll go up here and, first thing we're going to talk about my captain skills. I'm just going to scroll through these real quick so y'all can see those, and then I'm going to go back and hit some points on it. Go ahead and scroll through. So y'all get a good look at it. Alright guys, we'll start right here with the tactical systems. If you were looking to do a straight beam fire at will boat, you would not want to be putting specs into projectile weapons. You can bring that over here and stuff it in your starship weapon performance. You can put it in auxiliary if you need some better heals, even in the armor. You can come over here and do that. But what I'm doing, with the reason I did things like this, is I still got my energy weapon, because that's where most of your DPS is going to come from anyway. But here, I kept the projectile weapons because I want to still be able to use torps. With the way I've got it set up right now, I'm still seeing on like some of the, let's go right here real quick, on like this torp right here, on the gravimetric photon torpedo, I'm still seeing 20k crits on that. That's massive for for somebody that's not completely spec for torps. But that's what I like the most about it, is you get to use your energy weapons and you get to use the torps. Nothing's better than running this Defiant, coming in on a bunch of Borg spheres and stripping their shields with a cannon shot, and then dropping a torp spread and just wiping out the whole. That is just amazing to me. I love doing that. Let's go on down here to the next bits and pieces. See, I'm making sure that you got your attack patterns, your weapons trainings, your targeting systems. Down in engineering, this is controversial right here to a lot of people. They say not to do anything with driver coil, because driver coil basically it's going to do your warp speed in sector space, but it also improves your full input. So I think that has some merit, giving a little bit there. But like I said, we're going for an overall, all-around build. Starship batteries, a lot of guys that are doing the max DPS, they're not putting anything into that. I like using the batteries because on, like, say, this Defiant, I can come down here to my hazard emitters. If I'm really low on hull, I pop an aux battery, hit the hazard emitters, boom, it brings the health right back up. You scroll through here and just look at the electroplasmic systems. If you go over here and look at this, you can see this is the main thing right here. Alright, starship ability that transfers power from one system to another, such as emergency power to shields or weapons. We'll get into more about this later, but that's very big right there. So that's why I maxed it out. come over here to Warp Core Potential. This gives you your flat bonus to all your ship's power levels, which you can do right here. And this is what I've suggested to a couple of the guys that have said something about this spec. Some of the guys in my fleet that have been using this have been saying that their ship's kind of slow. It seems slower than it was before they started using this spec, and I believe that's right here. If you want to, you could probably pop these 3 off right here and add it to the impulse thrusters to give you a little bit more speed, because impulse thrusters is going to improve your ship's impulse speed and turn rate. So I haven't really noticed it's not that big of a deal to me, so I kind of just have left it like it is, but that seems to work really well for me. Come over here to auxiliary performance. I went that high on the auxiliary because I use a lot of auxiliary powers like the hazard emitters. I do still occasionally use transfer shield strength. It kind of just depends on the build that I'm doing. Like I said, you got your weapon performance here. Alright, flow capacitors is a big thing, especially with plasmonic leech. Let me go over here and show you that real quick. There's your plasmonic leech. Basically, it siphons power off of other enemy ships and gives it to you, and it bumps your own power levels up. Well, flow capacitors makes that stronger, so you'll get more power off of it. Of course, I needed the max shield emitters and shield systems. Power insulators. Here's something else that I've noticed with the power insulators, like tachyon beam. If you're running a lot of Borg stuff and they hit you with one of the shield drain abilities, this right here actually helps out with that. I can usually fight through it, and it doesn't hurt me that much because I've got enough with leech and running the added shield stuff. It usually doesn't affect me that. I can usually pop one of the like a science team and bring it right back. It's usually not that big of a deal, but if you find in your ship that it's giving you a hard time, you might want to add a little bit more to the power insulators. Just kind of scroll through here, and that's what I've got right now for my ground. I really don't mess with the ground too much, so I just kind of stuck the stuff in there. But like I said, guys, that's just a kind of quick overview of the way it sets up. This is this spec right here. It's kind of a adaptation of everybody's spec that I've looked at. I've kind of just brought everybody's together and kind of made it my own, but this works very well if you're doing, you want to fly all the ships and things like that. Alright, let's go on ahead and go to the traits. The first thing we're going to talk about is the personal traits. Like most of y'all know that I'm basically all space, so I haven't selected any ground power, so basically just go through and select all your space abilities. So I've got accurate, astrophysicist, crippling fire, elusive, precise, techie, warp theorist, and last ditch effort. Space reputation. Alright, since we're kind of a DPS focused build, but we're still trying to fly everything, you're going to add the added crit severity this is from Dyson reputation. 16% critical severity. That's going to be your crit D. Alright, the precision is going to be your crit chance, crit H. It's plus 4%. So that takes care of those two. The next two are going to be down here. This is the auxiliary power configuration, defense and offense. Basically, it is based on it says in space combat, your maximum hull, hit points, shield, kinetic, based on your auxiliary power level. So basically, depending on how high your auxiliary power is what you're going to get off of this. If you're running an auxiliary to battery build, this sometimes could cause a problem. Some people don't like using it with auxiliary to battery. I haven't had a problem with it. It doesn't seem to affect me that much, but what I like about it is like when your auxiliary to battery, when it cycles off and you get your auxiliary power back, it actually gives you a boost while your other buffs are down. So it kind of works out both ways. That's for the same thing for the defense and offense. It works the same way. It's just for offense that way. See, it's plus all damage and then plus accuracy based on your auxiliary power level. Ground, just hit these real quick. Omega weapon, shield regenerative, augmentation, maximum shield capacity, and armor hardening. Alright, active reputation. These are tier 5 on everything now. I just finished up the Undying the other day. So basically I've got the quantum singularity manipulation. What I've noticed about this, So basically what it's going to do is increases all your space science stats. So if I'm really in a bind and I'm getting ready to explode and I do not want to, I'll hit that, and then you can hit your science abilities, and it helps heal yourself up using like science team hazard emitters, things like that. Body molecular shield generator. I haven't used this much, but it seems to work really well. Like if you're running conduit and you get up on that board cube and you're going to be staying right on it at the very end, that's probably one of the times where I take a lot of damage, so I can pop that up as I'm hitting the board cube or in any other area that you're not going to be moving around a lot. The refracting Tetryon cascade that's pretty nasty. Usually what I do is I'll hit my buffs like attack pattern alpha, hit my tactical teams, and I'll hit it when I come up on a group of spheres or come up on a cube with a bunch of spheres around it. It does pretty hefty damage to them. And then you got Defiance. Basically what Defiance is going to do, it's a ground trait. So you've only got 3 spaces, so I just threw that one out. That was a little bit better than a medical nanite cloud, I thought. So, but like I said, I don't mess with that too much. Alright, let's go on from here. Went over the personal traits, all the reputation traits. Let's go ahead and I'm going to talk about some bridge officers. What I'm going to do in this section, I'm going to talk about my favorite abilities and what I use the most. I'll go through my escort type abilities. I'll go through my auxiliary to battery, cruiser type abilities. Well, since I've got my Defiant up right here, I'll just go through my build. As of late, the main DPS, what everybody's saying is that they want everybody saying to use the max attack pattern beta. So they would actually want you to use attack pattern beta 3 right here. I can't say that I have personally seen a huge number increase in using either or, but in some cases I can see where I've gone into a conduit with 2 or 3 other people running, say like a scimitar, and everybody spamming attack pattern beta 3, your DPS numbers are going to jump up a lot. I don't usually run with a lot of guys like that. I'm doing a lot of pugs to where I just don't see the big increase in the DPS. And since the beginning, if you go back and look at my earlier builds, I've always run Cannon Rapid Fire 3. So basically, my favorite abilities, I like the Cannon Rapid Fire. You can use Scatter Volley if you like, because it's more of a AoV, area of attack. It is a wide cone of attack, so you could hit more targets. When I'm flying my escort, I'm more of a target-to-target person. I'll fly in, I see a cube, I attack that cube till it explodes. Then soon from there, I move on to the next one. And basically, I just adjust my speed as I'm moving along and hit them in just like a straight line. Boom, one to the next one. With the torp spread, since I've been using those gravimetric photon torpedoes, the torp high yield on that is really slow, really fast, it's targetable, so I just haven't been using that. The spread, especially with this torp spread 2, it throws out so many torps, which also gives an added chance for it to create. I can let you read that. Alright, here's your 33% chance upon detonation creates a 1k radius gravimetric rift for 3.3 seconds that deals kinetic damage. That's just crazy. When you spit out that many torps, it's pretty much going to happen every spread. It's a very good possibility that it's going to end up happening, and it just sucks everything in like a gravity well does, and so you can come back around and just keep on attacking. It just kind of keeps everything together. So it's like having a gravity well on a tactical ship that you can throw out there and trap spheres, things like that. Of course, I got my 2 tactical teams. As you notice, there's doubles of everything, and the reason for that is if you're running 2, you'll get your global cooldown most of the time. So you're running your Cannon Rapid Fire. When this one goes up, this one goes on cooldown, but it's a lot shorter cooldown than it would be if you were only running 1. The only other way you can do that is if you're only running 1, like Cannon Rapid Fire, you'd have to have the duty officer that reduces the cooldown on it, and they're pretty expensive, so that's why I usually just run doubles. And with the way I do my keybinds and everything, it's a lot easier this way, and it's a lot cheaper. Down here, I end up throwing this beam array fire wheel one in on, especially on this build, because I'm running this omnidirectional and a proton beam. But what's nice about that is, if you come into it where there's, like I said, there's a bunch of spheres or something, you can usually just hit the fire wheel and it'll attack everything. But for my escort, those are the main things I use. I have used on, like, if I'm using like the wide angle quantum torp or one of the fleet torps, most of the time I used high yield on like the quantums. But like I said, for this I'm just using the spread because I didn't like the high yield on it. But for, like I said, for the escort, that's my main ones I use. Alright, on to the engineering. For all my escorts, if it has a lieutenant engineering station, I'm going to run emergency powered weapons and emergency powered shields. Now, depending on how strong the escort is, if I can get by with using emergency powered shields 1, I will, so I can have more weapon power. But it really, this is the normal configuration I use. I tend to go more on the tankier side than on the DPS side when I build my ships, just so you can take a little bit more damage, because the more DPS you deal, the more aggro you draw, the more damage you're going to take. So you kind of have to build on that side of it, unless your ship can handle it. Same thing goes for the science. Up until this last season that come out, I have been using hazard emitters and transfer shield strength. This season, since they took the cooldown, the global cooldown between tactical team, engineering team, and science team, there used to be a shared cooldown between them. Since they took that away, you can actually hit both of them at the same time. There is no shared cooldown among them. So I started going with the science team. It's got a really short cooldown on it. It's 30 seconds if you run auxiliary to battery. It's only 15 seconds. So every 15 seconds you can be hitting a heal. And like I said, depending on the way your ship's running, you can either run science team or hazard emitters and flip-flop those, whether if you want a science team 2 and a hazard emitters 1, or a hazard emitters 2 and a science team 1. It just depends on if you need more hull heal or you need more shield heal. It just depends on your setup and what other components you're using for your build. Alright, let's go on over here. I'm just going to go down my list over here with my some of my bridge officers. Let me go in here and find a good one. Look at my list. 2 I'm using on my Avenger build, which is an auxiliary to battery build. Jesse is one of them. Alright, engineering team, auxiliary to battery, emergency powered weapons, reverse shield polarity. That has been pretty much what I'm doing. The other one, which is this bridge officer, I'm using these first 2 for the Avenger, the emergency powered shields and the auxiliary to battery. So basically what I'm doing here, of course I'm going, since it's a cruiser and I can tank a little bit more, I'm going for the max weapons power so I can get my DPS up. You got the 2 auxiliary to batteries, and then you got engineering team, and then your other emergency powered shields. Again, we'll go over this in a minute. There's a reason for having 2 copies of each, and since it was running auxiliary to battery, the cooldown is going to be reduced on it also. Reverse shield polarity. I really like this. There is actually I think it's a fabrication engineer that will add 8 seconds to the duration of reverse shield polarity. It's about 9 million energy credits. I haven't picked one up yet, but this is a lifesaver. And if you're running auxiliary to battery, it's up. Pretty much anytime you need it, it's going to be there for you to use because of the cooldown from the auxiliary to battery and the technicians. So that's pretty much what I've been running on my auxiliary to battery builds. It's my favorite, probably 4 or 5 different engineering abilities for auxiliary to battery. Is going to be reverse shield polarity, emergency powered weapons, emergency powered shields, the auxiliary to battery of course, and then the engineering team. Depending on, like I said, how you want to build, you can move these around. If you don't really want to have, like if you feel like your ship needs more hull heals, you can swap the emergency powered weapons down to emergency powered weapons 1 and put an engineering team 3 there, and that is a really strong heal. If you're running auxiliary battery, you want to stay away from things that use auxiliary power like hazard emitters. the main things like the auxiliary structure integrity field, that uses, it's best when you have a lot of auxiliary power on it. If you don't, it's not going to work very well. So that's why I started going with the engineering team. So that's to give you all some ideas, some things you can play around with. Some of the guys are still using the Marion and direct energy modulation, but as of this last season, I've actually seen guys starting to move away from auxiliary to battery and starting to go with a dragon type build. As I get into my other ship build videos, I'll throw in a dragon type build in there so y'all can see it. And basically what they're doing is they're just rotating 4 copies, emergency powered shields and emergency powered weapons, 2 copies of each, so that way you have that global cooldown on them and they're always up. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Alright, let's hit some, let's see. Go ahead, I believe it was this one. Yep. Alright, this is going to be my my beam fire at will on my Avenger. You're looking at beam fire at will 3, attack pattern beta 1, and tactical team 1. Pretty much on all my cruisers, that is what I use. Now, unlike the Avenger and I believe the Regent, you'll have another ensign slot over here. If you're running auxiliary to battery, it's pretty much useless to have 2 tactical teams. It doesn't do anything because auxiliary to battery is already going to be, going down to global cooldown on that. So what I ended up doing, like I said, this goes along with my spec. I dropped that and I put a torp spread there, so you can run your wide angle torp off the Regent, or you can run a gravimetric or whatever else other torpedo you want to use. Because like I said, I like being able to use both. But that's pretty much what I'm using for my tactical on my cruisers. Science, like I said, it's either going to be science team and hazard emitters, 1 or 2. If you're running an auxiliary to battery, like I said, you want to stay away from, I like science team. You always need hazard emitters, even if it's off, it still does the cleanse. But with your science team, it doesn't rely on auxiliary power, so it's good to use a science team. And like I said, again, you can swap these back and forth depending on how you feel your ship's flying. If you need more hull heals or you need more shield heals. Alright, that's pretty much all my bridge officers, what I like using. So let's go ahead. We'll go hit my duty officers real quick. I'll show you some of my favorite duty officers, the things that I use a lot. Alright, like I said, this is for my Defiant. As of right now, I'm running 2 projectiles, 3 damage control engineers, and a warp core engineer. If you are running a non-auxiliary to battery build, these 4 right here are pretty much a staple on every ship I build that is not auxiliary to battery. Your damage control engineer, you have a 35% chance to recharge time reduced by 30%. And what that's talking about is your emergency powered shields and your emergency powered weapons. So as you can see right here on my emergency powered shields, it shows you right there 35% chance to the recharge time is reduced by 30%. There's 3 of them. Boom, right there. Alright, the next thing is the warp core engineer. As you can see on emergency powered shields 2, it shows 20% chance to add plus 25 to all your power levels. So for every activation of that, there's a 20% chance. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 5 times. When it cycles 5 times, and one of those 5 times, you're gonna end up getting that plus 25 power levels. And from what I've seen, it happens quite often. And with them being on global cooldown, it happens more often. So those are like I said, those are the 4 main on non-auxiliary to battery. I run 4 of those all the time. Now, since I'm also running some torpedoes on my builds, I've been sticking these 2 torpedoes, reducing the recharge time for your torpedoes. 20% chance to improve recharge time by 5 seconds. So I've got 2 of those. These are from the dilithium on, let's go, they're right here under the Borg store. Borg duty officers. Right there. 10 of 10. Alright, the other ones that I have, all 4 of these have gotten off the exchange. Last time I checked, damage control engineers were 2 to 5. Warp core was probably about the same. It's been a while since I've had these forever, so it's been a pretty good while. I can't remember exactly, but they are expensive. You can get away with using the blue ones, and I think those are actually just a couple 100,000 energy credits. 3 blue ones is better than nothing, and it actually still works really well. I'm going to scroll down. I picked a couple of these up, like Vogue the Faithless. I picked them up on the duty officer missions. Con officers, they'll reduce your tactical team. So if you're running one copy of tactical team, you're not running auxiliary to battery, and you want to reduce that cooldown, you can run the 2 con officers and reduce that cooldown. You can get it down to global. Here's an energy weapons officer. This is like reduces your beam special attacks, like beam fire at will. It just depends. I very rarely use that because if I'm using beams, I'm pretty much running auxiliary to battery. So, and if I'm not running auxiliary to battery, I'm running 2 copies of it. All right, here's your technicians for auxiliary to battery. Bridge officer power is reduced by 10%, and you can run up to 3 of those over here. So I would have 1, 2, 3, and then what I would run is a warp core, and I still have 2 left. Some guys, what they're running in that, you can run, if you're running direct energy modulation, you can put your Francis Delmer in there to add that extra stuff, or you can also there's a Zimok Genro, which is attack pattern beta by 15%. If you're on auxiliary to battery, that really doesn't help too awful much. But then again, if you run the torps, you can run the 2 torps. So 1, 2, 3 technicians, a warp core engineer, and 2 torp doffs. Works very well. That's what I've been running on mine. You can also, if you didn't have the torps, you could actually, or you could drop one of these and add an exocomp if you have one of these, which this is just going to, on use of battery, adds your damage buffs, weapons, batteries, and all that good stuff right there. Basically, it's going to buff your batteries. As it says, additional buffs applied based on type of batteries activated. This is a neat little doff right here. Tractor beam repulsors now pulls instead of pushes them away. I've played with that on my science characters and on my science ships. It's just pretty fun to jerk spheres around. That's really about it. Like I said, the main things I'm running, the torp doffs, damage control engineers, and technicians. Those are the main things that I run on pretty much all my builds. And like I said, I'll splash in something here or there for fun, just to test and see what else I can do. But like I said, that's the main things I've been using. Pretty much all these doffs that aren't like the 10 of 10, Vogue the Faithless, those are from, those are from the Borg. This is from like the cluster missions, doff missions. Law come from the Nimbus. I believe you pick him up in Nimbus, and pretty much everything else, like I said, Hunter is from one of the cluster missions. Pretty much everything else you can get off the exchange, so, or you can pick it up in a doff pack or something like that. Alright, go ahead and go to the next thing. We're going to talk about power optimization. Like I said, depending on what build you're running, this is the way I set my power optimization for DPS. Alright, I go over here to your weapons power. I max it out straight up to 125. Boom, it's all the way up, as high as it can go. What I do next, you can set, I usually like to start off with, I'll set 100, 50, and then 25, 25. But as of right now, I've got it set at the 100, 55, 20, and 25. Alright, so basically what I do is I go to 125 here, and I'll set this somewhere around 50, 55 or so. Alright, and what we're doing here, if you remember back with the DOFs, that reduce the cooldown of these, what I always do to set my power level for my shield, is you can hit this emergency powered shields, boom, it goes up. Look and see what power it's at, 116. Alright, I know the max, if I can get it off, there it goes. Man, it usually works better than that. Let me start over. Getting ready to come up on it. And boom. So what you can do is, if you want to drop a little bit of that power. I hate it when that thing messes up. That's why I was messing up there. There it goes. Alright, it's falling off now. So you're looking at 124. Man, I hate it when this thing messes up. There it goes. Alright. 125 is the highest that it goes. So what you want to do is if you set your weapons there, hit your thing. 120, 125. Alright. So what I do is I try to back it down. And it's usually about right there. Alright, so what's going to end up happening is since you've got your, we'll wait for this to clear up again, what's going to end up happening is you got your 125 here, and you see you're sitting at 116. Alright, here, it'll go falling off. Okay. Now, you know we're also running Plasmonic Leech that adds weapon power, shield power, engine power, and auxiliary, but it's going to add those powers across the board. So what you can do is get you want the shields to max out as high as they can. So 116, remember 125 is my max. That's pretty close. What you can do is get in game and watch it, hover over it and see where it's sitting at, but from my experience that in the flow capacitors and everything I got, it usually puts me right at 125 or 135 depending on which warp core you have. So that's the way I optimize. And then when I get down here, once I know that this is set and that's set, usually what I do is I bottom out my engines and leave my aux high, or I can just come in here and just kind of equalize them, because if you are running the warp core that has amp in it, you want these to try to get up above 75 each for the amp to work. So we can come over here, take a look at the warp core. So it shows you right there with the amp. Plus 3.6% all damage for each subsystem with 75 or more power. So you want to try to get, and when this DOF with the warp core engineer, when it actually goes off, go ahead and hit that real quick again, show you him. It's going to give you that plus 25. Let's see if we can get it to go. Boom, there it goes. See, I'm pretty much right there, but with Leech, it's going to put me over that. So that's just more damage, more power that you're going to get, which equals more DPS. So anyway, guys, like I said, max out, adjust to get it close to as high as it'll go, and then let Plasmonic Leech take care of the rest. And then just kind of set this how you like it. Like I said, I like a little more on aux, but with the amp, I've been trying to equal them out so they both try to get above 75. If you drop it all the way down, sometimes it won't get over 75 to get you that extra damage. Alright, let's go into the keybinds. I'll annotate this here with the Hilbert guide. I'm still using the Hilbert guide. As of a couple videos ago, I said that I had it, it messed up and started activating backwards. Basically, I just went through a couple days ago and just wiped everything, reloaded the keybind, and it's working like it's supposed to now. So we're good to go on that. So basically what's going to end up happening, like if you go to thehilbertguide.com, follow his instructions. It's very simple. You can go through there, install it, load the file, and it's going to set your keybind for tray 7. This is how I have my tray set up. Everything in tray 7 gets activated by the spacebar. When you press the spacebar, basically what it's going to do, it's going to fire all weapons, and then it's going to activate everything on tray 7 in order from left to right. So what I always do is I put my emergency power to weapons or shields, depending on what you want. If you want a more tankier attack, like if you know you're going to be taking a lot of damage right off the bat, you might want to put the shields first, because that's the first one that's going to activate. Or if you want a lot of power first, you want to put the weapons first. Then I put my attack pattern betas, I put my cannon rapid fires, and then I put my tactical teams. Now, if you were running an auxiliary to battery build, what I would do is I would leave everything like it is, but on the end, after everything, you would put your auxiliary to battery, your 2 auxiliary to batteries. So basically what it would look like with an auxiliary battery, emergency powered weapons, emergency powered shields. Then you would have your attack pattern beta, your beam fire at will, your tactical team, your torp, and then 2 auxiliary batteries. And the reason for that is as you're activating your abilities and coming across, as after they're all activated, they start their cooldowns, then you hit auxiliary battery, it reduces their cooldowns and so forth. Like I said, and then for my escorts, this is the setup I use. Everything else is on here. This is just kind of like my own little way to do it. You can group these a little bit better on like how you want to do it. I tend to put all my reputation powers down here on the bottom left. I put all my ship stuff, slipstream, basic maneuvers, full impulse. If I was running a Romulan ship or something with a cloaking device, I would put that right here in number 7, and then I put my heals right here in the bottom. I put all my tactical abilities on this row. Y'all could probably group these a little bit different. This is just the way they've always been. I know where they are, and I've just learned to use them like that. You could actually put tactical team, your fire on my mark, attack pattern alpha. Those 3 could go right beside each other, and then like I said, every once in a while when you get to go down fighting and you can use it, it'll pop up. So it just depends on how you want to organize everything. But that's basically my setup for my tray. I usually leave these over here. You can actually hide those if you want. It just looks kind of weird with everything clumped over here if I didn't have anything over there. So I just leave those over there just so I can, if I'm happen to be looking on that side of the screen, I can look down and see where my abilities are at. A lot of guys don't run with this showing with their, since tray 7 is going to be your activated abilities, a lot of guys will go to like number 3, and they'll have another whole set of items that they can put on there, and then they just don't worry about what the tray is. But I like watching my tray just so that way I can see, help me with positioning, knowing when my next buff is going to come up to where I can get in position good, to where I can get a good shots off. Alright guys, from there I'm just going to hit this real quick. Like I said, if you didn't want this here, you can actually go in here to your UI, and you can click hide and it'll disappear. So if you didn't want that there, you can do that. A lot of things, my suggestion for your HUD, for your heads up display, is to have the least amount showing as you possibly can. As you can see, let me back out of this, I've got my frame rate up here. If you want to see that frame rate, you can actually type /show FPS 0, and that cuts it off. Or you can type show FPS 1, and that'll make it show up. And that's just showing you your frames per second. I've got it limited right now at 60. My rig can get it up to, you know, in the hundreds, but I just have left it sit right here at 60. But what I'm getting at, I want you to notice, if you see my frame rates right here, I'm hovering right at 60. Watch what happens when I open up a window. Hey, it actually didn't do it for once. Must be in a good enough area. Let's open something else. Let's open that. Nope, that ain't gonna do it. Let's open this. Huh. It's actually not doing it. But anyway, if you get into an area where you have a lot of action going on, it's probably because I'm sitting over here on this side of the map where there's not much going on. You will actually notice that frame rate. If I'm sitting over right beside ESD right now, you would notice that frame. It would just about drop in half just by opening up that one window. So what I've noticed is the less you have open on your screen, the better off your frame rates are going to be. If your frame rates are low, things start getting laggy, it just doesn't work good. Alright guys, that's pretty much it that I can think about right now. Pretty much went through everything that I can think of. We went through all my abilities up here. Pretty much from now on, for what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference in all the rest of my ship build videos, I'm going to reference this video for my play style, how to do the way I do things. From here on out on my ship builds, basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here, I'm going to open up my ship and go, alright guys, this is the weapons I'm using, this is where you get them from, and I might throw in a little video of how to fly the ship at the very end of. They're going to be very short videos. I wanted to get everything kind of condensed into one big video, and then from here on out I can just do little videos, and then I can do an update video to this video if something else changes when the next season comes out, like it did this past season. So like I said guys, if y'all have any questions, concerns, comments, suggestions, things to do, just drop me an email in game. You can send me a PM. I'm usually on quite a bit, So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. Anything else I can do for y'all, just let me know. Y'all take it easy. Y'all just fart. Out.